U.S. Congress formally confirmed the election of Joe Biden as president after Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power. I want to show you these visuals. Rioting protesters breached police lines and forced their way into the building, where members of Congress were tallying votes to officially confirm Biden's win. While the protesters, many rioters and vandalizers rather, waved Confederate flags. Some took away a podium from the House floor, and actually a man sat at the desk of Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker. U.S. lawmakers, some of them, had to hide as the rioters attempted to break in. Now, former U.S. presidents as well as world leaders have denounced the chaos. Now we're less than 2 weeks before Biden's inauguration. Are more riots on the verge of eruption? Joining me for the discussion from Washington, D.C., is Jim Spellman, my colleague at CGTN America, and here in Beijing, Einar Tangen, former U.S. prosecutor and current affairs commentator, and also in Beijing, Wang, chief reporter at the Global Times. Welcome, gentlemen. Jim, let me go to you first. First of all, it's great to see you. How are you and our brothers and sisters at CGTN America? I mean, it has been quite a day for you and your crew being at the center of all this.
It has been, and it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was on the east side of the Capitol. We were interviewing protesters, and on the west side, this angry mob arrived from the speech President Trump had just delivered, fueled by President Trump's grievances over false claims that the election was illegitimate. They stormed into the building, and then, as the images that you've mentioned show, taking over, roaming freely through the rotunda, through these iconic spaces that symbolize American institutions and American democracy. It took hours for the police to clear the building and restore order. During that time, President Trump did little to calm the situation. In fact, at one point, putting out a video where he called for peace, but essentially praised this mob, calling them special people, saying that he loved them. That was enough for Twitter. They suspended President Trump for 12 hours and took down that video as well as some other tweets. Remember, as you mentioned, this was all about certifying the election results. It was about 8 p.m. at night when Congress came back together, led by Mike Pence, to formally move through that process. It was a day like none I have seen here in Washington, easily the most chaotic day here since September 11th, 2001, and those terrorist attacks. Wang?
Yeah, Jim, we worked together in Washington, D.C. for, 4 or 5 years. I was there for 8 years in total. You have been a wonderful colleague, along with Nathan and everybody. How do you feel, yesterday watching all this unfold? Not just as a Washington correspondent, but as an American citizen?
Well, you know what it's like to go to the White House, to go to the Capitol. These are buildings, these are where people go to work, but they're also huge symbols. And I think we all have agreed until yesterday that there were certain boundaries that simply are not crossed. So I've seen countless protests here in Washington, some even that have turned violent, but never have I seen people even attempt anything like this. It feels like generations of civilization here in the United States, that something changed yesterday because of that. I think the one thing that is encouraging is to see the immense backlash, including from many, but not all Republicans, to what President Trump has been doing to bring this on, not only in the last few days, not only in the month or so since the election, but really in 4 years, where he has fanned this angry group of people, filling them full of grievance, and then watching President Trump simply make it worse. All, in this case, because he simply can't accept losing an election. It feels, Guan, like all of these institutions in the U.S. are under attack all at once.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. As a student of international relations, American politics, it's very unfortunate. I wouldn't expect this to happen one day, but it did. Unfortunately, the next question is, what can we expect today? It looks pretty peaceful behind you on the Capitol Hill. Are people bracing for more protests today, or can we safely say the worst is behind us?
Well, I think the worst is behind us for now. I think the next date we have to look forward to is January 20th, the inauguration of Joe Biden. this was a reckoning. There's no getting around it. And I think right now you're seeing people taking a sober-eyed look at what 4 years of Trumpism has brought to the United States, including many in the Republican Party who would like to live to fight another day. This is simply not the hill they want to die on. People like Mitch McConnell, powerful Republicans who are looking forward to their next stage. That said, we've already seen some top White House staff resign. We expect more throughout the day. And there's even been discussions, according to multiple U.S. media outlets, that heads of cabinets are discussing the 25th Amendment, which is kind of a complex process where they could unseat President Trump with less than 2 weeks to go in his tenure. Now, it's unlikely that would happen. It's unlikely that he will be impeached in these 2 weeks. But the mere fact that his own cabinet heads are apparently discussing this shows what a dramatic change in tone we've seen here in Washington in just 24 hours.
Right, let's see what unfolds in the next few days. Thanks so much, Jim. Be well, be safe, and take care.
Thank you.
Einar, let me go to you in Beijing. We watched those visuals and what happened today. Some are, of course, peaceful protesters, but many are rioters and vandalizers. They're violent. I mean, we know that they would be angry, but how come these Trump supporters are this angry?
Well, they've been fed a steady diet of conspiracy theories that the election was stolen, not just by anybody, but by Donald Trump and his minions. They've orchestrated this. They've been sending out huge volumes of, requests for funds. They've raised over $210 million, all on this theory that the election was stolen and that they needed to take it back. Now, the tinderbox was there. People came from all over the United States. They were intent on backing who they thought was the president. But when he gave that speech and said, we got to march down there and we got to show them strength, that was that's what lit the fuse. And then we saw what happened.
Wow, yeah. So many are instigated, let's say. Trump, on the other hand, said in a statement he puts out, his staff puts out on Thursday, promising an orderly transition of peace. This is unprecedented. He said this, and I quote, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January the 20th. But he also said that this will be, of course, the end of our, quote, greatest first term in presidential history. It is only the beginning of our fight to make America great again." I mean, it looks to me that there are so many contradicting messages in this statement. I mean, do you think these will appease his supporters or rather further instigate them? Einar.
Well, he's making a transition here. He knows that the end is nigh. Right now, he's bunkered in the White House. He's not speaking to anybody. His aides are avoiding him. He's been described as in denial, extremely angry. So you can expect him to come out firing as soon as his timeout by Twitter has gone away in 12 hours. But he is definitely going to be somebody who's going to take this fight to the next step. It's been speculated, and I think it's probably right, that he will be starting a conservative media group and trying to take over this large number of people. Remember, 45% of Americans thought that it was okay to have this happen at the nation's state house. That tells you what a divide it is. It also tells you that Biden has a big order in front of him if he thinks he's going to rally the world around the U.S. model and take on China, because, quote, the U.S. model is the one that people should be following.
Well, Wang Cong, let me go to you. First of all, thank you for joining us. We've heard today from China's foreign ministry spokesperson saying that there was a double standard in the U.S. media and politicians portraying this U.S. Capitol Hill protests versus the Hong Kong protests. How do you look at what's happening in the United States as a Chinese reporter, as the international relations observer?
Yeah, I mean, it is quite shocking. Here's a couple of observations. I worked in Washington, D.C. for 1 year. You were there also. You and I have been to the Capitol Hill. This is not just some federal building. This is the heart of the U.S. government system. And it is designed to, survive certain types of foreign invasion. So for me to see the scenes of, this Capitol building overrun by the mob of the protesters, I think it was surreal and really shocking. And the question is how they're so unprepared, the authorities there. They have a Capitol Police, they already ordered the National Guard on there. How they were so unprepared to deal with this situation. It was really shocking. That says a lot about where the U.S. government capabilities and their efficiency. And second, Trump has to, Trump keep tweeting, keep inciting the violence, and that Twitter and Facebook has to make it stop and block him. Remember, this is the guy have the nuclear codes for the U.S. nuclear arsenal. How bizarre that is, it's hard to describe. And then later about the China issue, definitely double standard, because when you see these protesters, taking over the Capitol building, it's the same exact pictures that happened, a year ago in Hong Kong, where the mob also overtake the Legislative Council. Same exact thing, but they're, in America, all the U.S. politicians call this and condemn this, but when it comes to Hong Kong, they say it's a beautiful sight to behold. So there's a lot, a lot of fun today, and it's really, really, it takes time to get to, to consume it.
There was a double standard for sure. I would second that. But once more, I want to stay with you and show you this new survey from YouGov, that is a British market research and data analytics firm, that says today that 1 in 5 voters in the United States, including 45% of Republicans, approve of the storming of the Capitol building. What do you make of all this? I mean, what will they say about the future of U.S. politics going forward when Biden's sworn in?
Look, what happened, at the Capitol Hill, it was quite shocking for everybody. Like your colleague described, it's like the September 11 event. But for anybody who's been watching the U.S. elections, U.S. politics over the past year, it's quite exhausting. And what the U.S. president, current U.S. president, has been doing and saying, I think it's not really surprised to see these things, because everybody was talking about something like this would happen in Washington. So this is, not just a random attack or random protest. It has been in the long in the making, and also it says it's not just the end. It's not the end of this chaotic period of U.S. politics. It's just the beginning, like Trump suggested.
Yeah.
It's the beginning. Remember, just another very important event was the election of the Senate seats in Georgia. Now the U.S. Senate have 50-50. This is very rare. This means that there will be a lot of gridlock, partisan fight, and that I don't think Biden will have a very have an easy time to get any legislative work done. So it's just the beginning of of a long, more profound problems in the U.S.
While the protesters are protesting and turning violent, there was a watch party held by no other than the Trump family. Watching these pro-Trump supporters. I want to show you this video. Watch.
One of the few, a real fighter. Thank you, Mark. Kimberly.
Yes, have the courage to do the right thing. Fight.
Thank you, guys. Just really appreciate all the love and support. It's pretty amazing. Hi, Ivanka. Hi, Ivanka. Happy birthday, Eric.
Of course, we don't know the exact timing of, of these video. This is probably, I assume, taken at the beginning of the protests when they were pretty much largely peaceful, which later, of course, turned violent. Einar, how do you feel watching all this?
Well, it's straight out of something from this was a series called Succession, where a powerful man is surrounded by his capable of succeeding him, and all vying to do it. It's surreal. This was done just before President Trump went out to address the crowd and incite them to, quote, fight. And you noticed all the language in there. Fight, fight, fight. That's the number one thing that they're saying. They were egging the crowd on. They wanted to show a force. And I'm sorry, it's really disheartening.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in Washington, D.C. for 8 years. Wang, you were there for 1 year. Einar, you were from the United States. None
I
of
was
us.
born in D.C.
You were born there. Very few people expected what happened today. And let's pray for the best for the people in the United States.